Nature's golden rule. Drop a regular animal onto an island and watch the chaos unfold. Seriously, bizarre things happen to animals on islands. They change completely, start acting like no other creature in the world. So what happens to the caterpillar if you just leave it on the island and don't pick it up until later? Oh, you won't be disappointed. Let me explain. This caterpillar is lightning fast. Don't blink, you might miss the moment it attacks. Getting to that level of speed takes superpowers or extensive training with a guru, or as you've likely guessed, ending up on an island. Isolated from the rest of the world, Hawaii is home to a host of animals you won't find anywhere else. But some of the most interesting ones here are the carnivorous caterpillars. Sure, caterpillars don't stay caterpillars forever. They eventually become butterflies belonging to the Eupathecia genus. As an adult, the caterpillar eats flowers and seeds, just like any typical butterfly or moth. It has green, somewhat fuzzy wings and is kinda cute. But don't be fooled by the butterflies. Out of Hawaii's 20 native caterpillar types, 18 have learned to eat other bugs. And they're damn good at it. I mean, scientifically speaking, they're top-notch predators. Caterpillars are quite the pros at using camouflage during hunts, sneaking up on unsuspecting fruit flies. Sometimes they even carve out paths in leaves to trick their prey into getting close enough for an ambush. And they strike fast. These predatory caterpillars have long, thin appendages on their abdomens that act as sensory organs. When an unsuspecting insect, and they really don't suspect anything, because caterpillars aren't supposed to be predators, touches these appendages, our deadly caterpillar makes a quick backward motion, one strike. That's all it takes to capture the insect. Capture and hold it tight. Predatory Hawaiian caterpillars score additional lethal points thanks to the claws they use to hold their prey. If you look closely, the claws look like spines, and they're so long that they can pierce the victim. Caterpillars are relentless eaters, going after any creature they can grab without discrimination. They go for insects like flies, moths, crickets, and even cockroaches. Anything that can't get away fast enough. They've even been spotted hunting other caterpillars. Although it's not clear if it's a predator versus predator fight, this peculiar caterpillar behavior is unique to Hawaii alone. The caterpillar ancestors likely didn't hunt live prey originally. Why? Well, most caterpillars from this group aren't into meaty meals at all. The few that do prefer animal snacks live only in Hawaii. Yet even among them, 2 out of 6 species still prefer plants. It's not like they're ditching protein. Let's just say they have a more diverse menu. So putting all these puzzle pieces together, it seems only logical that hunting is a recent adaptation. It was probably caused by the population being isolated on the island. Out of the 6 carnivorous Hawaiian caterpillars, 4 aren't even a bit interested in nibbling on anything green. They're so predatory that they wouldn't touch a leaf if they were starving. Sure, they might munch on leaves to set up their hunting ground, but once they're done, those leaves are promptly spat out, even though any regular caterpillar would find them quite a feast. Caterpillars have come a long way in evolution to become predators, and there's no going back for them. Even if they fancied a menu switch, this wouldn't work. Predatory caterpillars opting out of their diet will just die. But insects didn't exactly doom themselves with their choice. Nope, turns out going carnivorous has been a big win in the evolution game. Remember how there are way fewer herbivores there? That's because eating neighbors works better than munching on leaves. Curious how and when the local caterpillars switched to meat? Well, it seems that, like so many things on this planet, it happened by accident, or rather by a bunch of accidents all at once. The caterpillars' ancestors didn't plan to reach the islands. They rode the wind, got stuck on debris, or hitched a ride with migrating seabirds. Few creatures survived the grueling transoceanic journey. Indeed, most insect pests, including ants, cockroaches, termites, and mosquitoes, didn't know Hawaii existed until humans brought them here. But way before that, the bold pioneers among insects found out that Hawaii's evolutionary playground was wide open. Studies indicate that about 400 ancestors gave rise to around 10,000 insect species during the process scientists call adaptive radiation. Basically, it's like a big wave of one species radiating out into many, creating a bunch of new species. Eventually, insect populations spread across many of the island's empty niches, from coastlines to alpine peaks and from deserts to rainforests. As they adapted to new places, new species emerged. Among them was our carnivorous caterpillar, a killer caterpillar. This caterpillar is thought to have descended from an ancestor that used to feed on plants, making its way to the islands about 5 million years back. I wonder at what point it developed a taste for meat. In Hawaii, carnivorous caterpillars stepped into the ecological role usually fulfilled by mantises. Yet, since mantises weren't brought to the islands, these caterpillars had to fill the gap. They also borrow their behavior. As I said, they attack with tremendous speed in just 0.1 seconds and then devour their prey alive. Pretty much like a mantis. Yet mantises didn't find a home here, or as scientists put it, there were significant barriers to their expansion. Other bug predators from the mainland weren't welcome in Hawaii either, leading to the evolution of these meat-eating caterpillars. It might sound crazy, a caterpillar that eats meat, that's ridiculous. However, the Hawaiian Islands served as a sanctuary for insects to shape their distinctive habits, especially since there were no ants or wasps to bother them. And yes, wasps and ants may not seem like very dangerous competitors, but that's only from a human perspective. If you've watched enough of our videos or are just interested in how things work in nature, for other insects, wasps and ants are fierce competitors. They can completely change their behavior in entire species. Take a look at this caterpillar. When it grows up, it'll become a Medusa procris butterfly. But until that, it's extremely vulnerable. That's why it has to pretend to be, waste. The entire body of the caterpillar is covered with spiky structures that visually help to sort of break its outline. If you put this caterpillar on a green leaf, it won't do any good for camouflage, but that's fine. This caterpillar makes its own environment to seamlessly blend in. Wherever it goes, the caterpillar leaves a long trail behind it, made up of silk, bits of leaves, and excrement. The color of these droppings is very similar to the body of the insect. And if I were a predator, I wouldn't eat that. While resting, the caterpillar aligns itself in accordance with these chains of its droppings and becomes invisible. It hides among the excrement. Disgusting? Maybe, but it's not stupid if it works. Scientists believe that this is how caterpillar blocks the ants' route and makes them steer clear from them. Somehow, ants just don't fancy following a trail of poop, and I don't really blame them for it. But okay, that's pretty clear. But how do we explain the attack structures and behavior of carnivorous caterpillars? Did the caterpillars grow all that on purpose, or is there evidence that these structures previously served a different function? In fact, the characteristic snapping function has been observed in other non-carnivorous caterpillars of the genus. However, it's used not for attack, but as a defense mechanism. In short, it seems that the caterpillar was created for a different purpose, and this transition to predation is simply a behavioral modification that used instincts already preset by nature. It wouldn't be too hard for Eupathecia caterpillars to switch to a meat-based diet. Natural selection would then favor the toughest, sharpest bristles. So these caterpillars switched from eating plants to hunting without really altering their bodies much. They just repurpose some parts. It's pretty straightforward and makes sense. But imagine people arrived on an island and started to use their hands as feet and vice versa. That's essentially the kind of change isolation brings to animals. Another example is a caterpillar that thinks it's a spider. Members of this species feed on snails and wrap sticky silk around their prey. This is pretty intriguing for a couple of reasons. First, it's the first time we see caterpillars eating snails, or any mollusk for that matter. That's not their usual meal. Also, while all caterpillars usually spin silk to build their cocoons, they don't usually employ it as a hunting tool. Well, that changed when scientists caught these caterpillars in the act. Once these caterpillars spot a snail, they immediately start spinning a silk web, attaching the snail shell securely to the leaf. This ensures the snail won't slip or drop off, making it an easy meal. Sometimes the caterpillars decorate their silk cocoons with empty snail shells, probably as camouflage or for intimidation. Caterpillars and land snails are everywhere, but only in Hawaii did caterpillars switch up their tactics to prey on snails. It all boils down to competition. Not much rivalry among predators, but plenty among plant-eating bugs. So this caterpillar decided to try something new. Because yes, this insect also descended from an herbivorous butterfly, which, however, settled on the islands a little earlier than the previous one, presumably about 15 million years ago. And if you think that something strange happens on islands all the time, you're right. Back in Darwin's time, scientists recognized that islands are hotbeds of evolutionary activity, like a non-stop evolutionary party. Without any natural predators around, we have plenty of available habitats. Animals on islands end up mutating a lot. That's why creatures on islands often look way different and evolve faster than their relatives on a nearby mainland. That's why Australia's a perfect breeding ground for all sorts of monsters. We might call it a mainland, but really it's just a gigantic, secluded island. It's like the ultimate playground for evolution. As for Hawaii, carnivorous caterpillars aren't the only strange insects there. There are also flightless flies, underground tree crickets, even vampire bugs that suck the sap out of insect corpses. And that's just part of the list. Many of these bizarre creatures are endemic and found nowhere else on Earth. Well, that's because nowhere else has evolution followed this particular path. But there are many other paths. It's not just Hawaii that's pushed animals to the extreme. This sounds like a scene straight out of a horror movie, right? A highly intelligent and mischievous parrot changes its diet from seeds and bugs to red meat. It starts hunting vulnerable sheep, ripping into their flesh and digging to reach their kidneys while they're still alive. That's exactly what naturalists and shepherds on New Zealand's South Island say happened around 1900. That's when the kea, the world's only alpine parrot, was blamed for the deaths of thousands of sheep, and their claims weren't groundless. These days, keas are recognized more for their playful antics than their predatory nature. They're daring and clever, possibly even as intelligent as some monkeys. But how did the story of these killings start? Well, naturalists believe that keas were originally herbivores like other parrots. However, winter comes and the parrots have to change their diet just to keep from starving to death. Berries, insects, and roots become scarce, so they look for animal fat. You can get a lot of energy from it. And to get to animal fat, you have to tear open the carcass, eat the meat and internal organs, including even the bone marrow. This is how the kea became scavengers. They have no choice. How did things end up like this? Over 15 million years, the islands were home to a plant-eating parrot that eventually divided into two different species. One species made its home up north in the rainforest, munching on insects and fruits just like any regular parrot, but the other settled down in the tougher southern zones where food was scarce except during summer. That's when this species had to become an omnivore. These days, we know these parrots as kea. Being adaptable eaters really paid off when humans arrived. With humans came sheep, and over time, these parrots developed a strong liking for their meat. One theory suggests it all began with people tossing sheep remains and meat bits into open holes, catching the attention of inquisitive birds. When other food was scarce, the bold keas might have taken their chances hunting live prey. Shepherds' suspicions about keas hunting sheep were confirmed when they found wool and raw mutton in the stomachs of birds shot on sheep runs. They started shooting the parrots for a reason. Keas were frequently seen clinging to the sheep and pecking at their wounds. Soon, people started sharing stories about how brutal the keas were. Some said the birds wiped out 200 sheep in one night back in 1884, while others claimed they caused the deaths of 15,000 sheep in just one season. Eventually, everyone was so angry with the keas that it became legal to kill them. Around 150,000 keas were estimated to have been killed between 1868 and the 1970s. While the bird doesn't directly cause sheep deaths, infections, or accidents might lead to it, imagine being in the mountains. A large parrot with a sharp beak swoops down, you start fleeing, things could go wrong. There are also scattered accounts of keas attacking rabbits, dogs, and even horses. Scientists today have come up with a whole list of theories about how keas developed a taste for meat. Maybe they were into insects and decided to expand their menu. Maybe they got interested in eating flesh after being drawn to maggots on dead creatures and unexpectedly liked the taste. Or perhaps they mistook the sheep for plants that resembled sheep and grew in the highlands. And then it followed the same pattern. They tried it and they liked it. Keas are on the verge of extinction now, so people don't see birds eating sheep anymore. Every now and then, farmers get worried when they spot strange marks on their animals. Parrots are interesting, but let's talk about finches. They usually munch on seeds, cracking even the hard ones like olives and cherries with their beaks. But guess what happens when seeds become scarce? They start feasting on blood instead. Not all of them, of course. This one, living on the small Wolf Island around 125 miles north of the main Galapagos Islands, faces a tough time. The island, full of steep cliffs and countless seabirds, stays dry for most of the year. Whatever seeds come with the brief rains get gobbled up quickly by the many birds, leaving the finches almost starving. However, there's only one thing we say to death: not today. Researchers have noted how these birds rely on nesting seabirds on the island to survive long dry spells. For instance, they may peck at their eggs, but what seems to be their main source of nourishment during droughts is blood. Despite being smaller in size, finches seem to boldly peck at larger seabirds without any repercussions. They sit on the tails of boobies and use their sharp beaks to peck at the base of the wings until the skin tears and blood appears. The finches then simply drink the small portions. Researchers describe a peculiar scene as a group of feathered vampires patiently wait in line during these drinking sessions. For modern finches, there's nothing special in this behavior, but their ancestors, harmless birds that ate only seeds, arrived in the Galapagos Islands around 500,000 years ago, pretty recently in the big picture of evolution. When seeds became scarce, these birds started using their beaks for different things like poking around tree bark for grubs. And it turned out their beaks were unexpectedly good for more carnivorous tasks. It probably worked the same way as with sheep. These finches might have stumbled upon insects and seabirds' feathers, accidentally tried their blood, and made it a permanent addition to their diet.
Survival on the island comes down to one thing: adapt or disappear. The wild changes in creatures are just reactions to competition. Where's the fiercest competition? Bingo! In the Amazon. That's where we see a lot of legendary animals, like this one.
Piranha. There's evidence that piranha ancestors were once plant eaters. It's definitely a harder to believe, yet many species of South American fish known as pacas, described as very close relatives of piranhas by scientists, use their teeth and powerful jaws to consume plants and fruits. How similar are these herbivorous species to piranhas? Despite attempts by some fish experts in the past to distinguish between meat-eating piranhas and their plant-eating relatives based on appearance, even specialists found it hard. These fish were frequently misidentified because it was so hard to tell them apart. Seriously. Due to these similarities, scientists theorized that these fish likely originated from the same fish family. So why did certain species start eating meat while others stuck to a plant-based diet? Maybe it went like this. As the fish population in South American rivers grew, there was more demand for their usual food. In simpler terms, there wasn't enough grass to feed everyone. The rise in competition within South American river systems sparked genetic changes. This led the once herbivorous fish to develop teeth and transform into the feared bloodthirsty piranhas. Pacas boast 2 rows of square-shaped teeth, while piranhas sport a single row of triangular teeth. And you know what? I think pacas are scarier. Seriously, their teeth look like human teeth. Don't you think so? See you later.